Good morning YouTubers, and welcome back to the David Swordplay channel. Now this morning we're off towards the garage here and we're going to replace the front brake pads on the Motor Guzzi, ready for our European trip. So if this is something that's of interest to you, join us after the intro and we'll get stuck in and show you what you need to do this quite simple brake pad replacement. Okay YouTubers, welcome back. I'm just looking at what we're going to need to do the pad replacement, so just put a few tools out here. Pair of work gloves, Phillips screwdriver, micrometer to check the pad depth, if you like, of the old pads compared to the new ones, torch, little old toothbrush, some copper slip, anti-seize compound, pair of long nose pliers, 7mm Allen socket, torque wrench, bit of a lever bar or a large screwdriver, some brake and clutch cleaner, and two sets of pads, because we've got two pads that go on each side of the each caliper. So first job we need to do is loosen the screws on the top of the front brake cylinder, so that when we're pushing the pistons back into the caliper to get the pads out, and we don't want any fluid pressure building up in the reservoir and squirting out through the little vent hole, so we just loosen the top off so it allows the fluid to rise without any air getting trapped in there. Okay, so here's the front brake master cylinder reservoir, and we're going to loosen these three star headed or Phillips headed screws, just to loosen that cap off, just to allow the fluid to go up and down when we're pushing the pistons in and out for cleaning and putting the pads in. Now, as you can see, I always cover the tank, put a bit of an old plastic bag on top of the covers I've got on the tank, just in case any fluid spills, because you must remember brake fluid is highly corrosive on your paintwork. So if you get it on your paintwork, so it's handy to have some water handy to try and get it off as quick as you can, but usually it's pretty nasty stuff and can ruin your paintwork if you don't get it off quickly. Okay, so we're now looking at the right hand caliper. We're just going to loosen these two mounting bolts here, as you can see. We're also going to disconnect the ABS lead here from the actual brake pipe, so that we can move the caliper away, and we're going to suspend it from the handlebars or somewhere with some straps and clean it out, take the old pads out. So basically the things that hold the pads in are, I hope you can see them here, two pins that run through here, that run through a spring clip to keep the pads from rattling, and there's two little R-clips which fit in there. One's there, you can't see the other one that gets down here. So we need to take those out, then we can remove the pins and take the pads out, and then we can get in there to clean all in the pistons. As you will see, this is a 4-piston caliper, so we need to try and get them out so we can clean all the dust around them, check that there's no corrosion or pitting on the piston to cause seal failure at a later stage, And we can do that by taking the pads out and then just pumping the brake lever very, very slowly, just to edge the pistons out a little bit. Now I usually leave one pad in the middle so that the pistons won't pop out if you accidentally push too hard, but you really need to do it very, very slowly. So let's get the caliper off, take the pins out, get it hung, and then we can sort of look inside the piston, at the pistons and at the caliper itself, and clean it all up. Okay, so here we are, we're loosening the bolts off. Quite easy to do. Now you notice these are slightly different from probably what's on your bike. These are titanium bolts from an MV Agusta, but they do fit this caliper. I had to short them a little bit, but they're a nice light, strong bolt. So we take both of those out. And well, before I take the other one out, I'll just pull these R clips out of the pins to make it easier to actually get them out. So there's the R clip you're removing from the pin. Now sometimes if the brakes haven't been looked at for a while, these pins can actually seize in, these R clips can actually seize into the pins, which you don't want, because you probably end up having to replace the pins, which gets, you know, how you've got to source them, and then you've got to buy new R clips, etc. So those are out. So we'll now unmount the caliper from the bike. We've already prepared a strap, and I'll put a piece of wire through one of the bolt holes just to hold the caliper while I clean it all out and take the pads out. Now you would also notice that I've put a rod through my front axle on a couple of stand jacks because I haven't got a proper bike front wheel lifter. Just helps easier to get the wheel to rotate, and you can check there's no binding on the disc. When we relocate the calipers, I'll show you how to do that properly. So that's what I do. I just put this tube through the axle and rest it on a couple of stand jacks. So now we're just going to find a piece of wire to put through the caliper, and then we'll take the last bolt out. Okay, so we'll just take this bolt out. As you can see, the caliper's now coming loose, and we just pull it off the disc by moving it backwards. It could be quite tight, and then we have the caliper off. A bit of weight off the brake pipe. Hope you can see that. Okay, so these brake pads look in pretty good condition. I'll just move around the front. You can actually see the brake pads in there. Hope you can see the brake pads. Let me get the camera there. Yeah, there's plenty of meat on them, but I've decided I wanted to change the pad for a material I like. It's the EBC H8. Now they're usually for sports bikes or things like that, but I like a nice solid feel to my brake pad, brake lever, so that's why I'm changing the pads. They've been in for about 2 years now, and they are getting a bit roughed up, so we're going to change them. The back end of the caliper. Now here's the two pins. Now they're under a bit of pressure because they're on a spring. Oh, knocked the camera. they're on a spring, so you just need to make sure you're holding that spring as you pull the bottom pin out, and then there's the top pin out. That should now release the pressure on the spring, so the top pin should be easier to get out really. Now I always put a bit of, oops, not the best stand I've got this. Hope you can see that. Yeah. I always put a bit of copper slip on these to clean them up. And there's your spring clip. Remember which way it came off. Okay, so you've got these two extra little nodules on the spring clip. That always goes to the top. Okay, so now we should be able to. And now we're going to remove the brake pads. So if I turn the caliper around this way, you can see now the pads are loose, and you should be able to pull them out the back. You don't really need to take the caliper off. I suppose you could do this operation just by taking the back end, but I like to clean all the caliper, check there's no seal problems in there. So I always release the caliper from the mounting block, and usually they recommend about 2mm left on the pad. Well, there's plenty on there. I suppose there's a bit more than 2mm, but we're going to replace them with the new ones. So we'll clean all the caliper up. Now obviously you need to check that your old pads match up with your new pads, which we'll do in a moment. So now we're going to clean all this out, push the pistons out a little bit. I'm going to use some brake cleaner and a toothbrush to get in there and clean all that out, and then we'll get back to remounting the new pads. Just before we clean the calipers up, these are the new pads we're fitting. Now you notice that they've got no grooves in the new pad, but they're the same size, same hole mounts. The groove really is, it can be a wear indicator, but it's also to aid cooling. But I like to get the brakes nice and warm. So you can run these. There's no problem with not having those little cooling strips in. These were the ones recommended by EBC for my application. So that's what I'm going to use. Now, like I say, there's not a lot of difference between the pad material, but they've been in a while, and we're going into the Alps, so I thought I'd fit some new brake pads. So that's what I'm going to do. So there's the new ones that are going in. We're now going to clean off this caliper inside. I also have a little Roses tin. Well, it's not tin now, it's plastic. So it collects all the crap that comes out of the caliper. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to clean these around the caliper, and then we're going to just edge the pistons out slightly to get inside and clean around the pistons. You can see that, here's the caliper. As you can see, there's 4 pistons in there. So we're just going to give it a quick spray with this brake cleaner. It's the same stuff you use on cars. I just like to clean all the caliper up, get all the crap out of there, and for that I use a little old toothbrush. So hold that there and then just get in and work all the fluid round. Make sure that there's all the bits and crap are out of the grooves. Give it another spray. And what you're looking for on these pistons, I'll just push one out a minute, push them out a little bit. Clean all the outside as well while you've got it off. Doesn't hurt any. Now if you've got an airline, which I have, but I have to run it with a generator and compressor, so it makes a lot of noise. I just usually keep spraying this stuff on and then wiping it off eventually when I've got it as clean as I want it. It's just nice to get it all cleaned up. Now what we want to do now is just bring out, I hope you can see all this, just bring out these pistons here, just to check that there's no pitting on them and that they're not seized and they're all working well. Now what I usually do is put an old pad in there to block one side and then reach up to the brake lever, which is a bit difficult to do on your own, and just gently push the brake lever till you feel a bit of pressure, and then again clean them up till you're happy with them. A bit more pressure. You can see them. One side's coming out. And we're cleaning those up. Now they do tend to come out at... And just keep doing that till you're happy that the pistons are nice and clean, they're not corroded, they're not leaking in any way. Paper now and wipe all that out. Sure that all that's nice and clean in there, especially where the pads slide, that there's no corrosion on the pads. Where the pads slide up, you can see that where my finger is. So we clean them all up nice and clean. Clean the caliper off. With this spray, and then wipe the individual components off, make sure they're nice and clean. There's no corrosion around the edge of the piston, so when you push the piston back it's going to damage the seal. You know, I keep my brake pads pretty clean. Right, so what we're going to do is put an old pad in. Put the old pads back in, and we're going to lever in between the pads. Now obviously, you know, I'm going to throw these away. Some people would think I'm silly, but that's what I do. I like to, if I'm going anywhere, I like to know the brakes are right. So we've got a little bit of movement there, and we can get our screwdriver in, and because we've got a nice even pressure, we can push the pistons back. So we push them right back and then turn our attention to the other side. Very slow pressure, and it gives you the room to get the new pads in, hopefully. So we take the old pads out again. Now we should be able to get the pads in there if we need to make it wider. We can do so, but while we've got the caliper off, we're now going to check the disc thickness, which is something else you should check periodically. Now I think you're supposed to have about 4mm on the disc, so we'll just get the micrometer and see what we've got. While we're doing that, I'll just show you what I was doing there. Move the camera around. Just get my micrometer, setting it at 0, open it up and just checking that the brake discs are over 4mm, which they are. Check it in a couple of places. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So, like I say, the recommended depth you keep forgetting about the camera. The recommended depth for your pad wear, I think, is about 2mm, and I'm sure we've got over 2mm on there, so we're using the point. I'll just turn my zero it again, and if I put that on there, hope you can see it, and just check what depth I've got. And according to that, I've got 4mm left on that, which is plenty really. I could leave them in, but I'm not going to. I'm going to put new pads in. Okay, YouTubers, you can see now that I've pushed the pistons right back into the caliper very slowly. Now you can do it, like I say, showed you before, using the old pads and levering, or you can use a pair of huge grips like this, put a pad in, and then put a piece of paper or something against the back of the caliper and squeeze the pistons back into place. Now try and keep them together so that they go back in evenly and you don't get one cockeye. That's very important. So we're now going to put the pads back in. Like I say, you can do it one of two ways. You should be able to get the pads in from the rear end, and you don't really need to take the caliper off, but I would recommend that, you know, it's a good idea to build the pads up in the caliper. The other thing to remember is there's no actual sleeve or anything when these calipers fit on, so that's why I say leave them loose and then pump the brake pedal, like they keep saying brake pedal, pump the brake lever so the pads seat properly on the disc before you actually tighten it up. Clamp them hard, nip the bolts up, and then spin the wheel, make sure it's nice and free and you don't hear any noise. Back and front, when you've put the pads in, you're going to have to go out and road test it, make sure the pads are bedded in. Now, most manufacturers recommend you avoid heavy braking for the first 50 kilometres or so. I would say that's not always easy to do, but the idea is to put some heat in the pads so the resins and everything else settle down and give you a nice even braking performance. Now, on the pads I usually like to put a bit of copper slip or anti-seize compound along the top, even though it's kind of coated in it, but I always put some extra on, and where the pistons go, put a little bit of copper slip on there as well, so when you slide it back in it's all nice and free, and the pads, as you can see, fit nicely, and they slide easily in the caliper because they're going to move that way as the brake pistons are applied to the back of the caliper. So that's what we're going to do next. Put a bit on the back and spread that around. So that's where the actual pad goes into the caliper. Okay, YouTubers, so we've now got the pins back in and the R clips back in, spring clips back on and in the correct place. Just turn it round so you can see it from the back end. You can see the pads slid into position there. So we can now put this back onto the disc and put the mounting bolts into the caliper, which is what we're going to do next. Obviously, always remember, I know I shouldn't have to say it, but the pad surface goes towards the disc. So we're just going to slide that onto the caliper now, which goes on nice and easy. And we're going to put mounting bolts in. I hope you can see that. Make sure that the threads are nice and clean, so that easy you can screw them in with your fingers. There's no locator dowel or anything like that, so we really need to make sure that these calipers are centralised onto the disc. They don't need to be tight, I just snug them up. And now we need to, I'll just nip you up here so you can see what's happening. I'm obviously just pumping the brake lever very slowly. You'll feel like you've got no disc there to begin with, but just keep pumping. And eventually you'll start to feel pressure. And then keep it locked like that with your hand. Now this way it gets a bit tricky if you're on your own. You could tie it off. I'm just struggling with my stand at the minute. You can tie it off, or you hold it with your hand. It's obviously difficult to do on the other side. And you now just nip the caliper up like that. Release the lever. Should have a nice firm lever, which we have. So if we put the lever on, got lock brakes, release it, spins nice and freely, and there's no noise coming from the pads. And we're now ready to torque that up to the right 80 Newton meters. I like to do it in stages, so that's what we're going to do next, is to torque that up. I'll do the first stage and then we'll get onto the, you can just hear the click. I usually start by tightening it up to 20, making sure it's still nice and loose. Brake, and here we go. And there we go. So, check the brakes again. Nice strong pedal. Keep saying pedal. I mean lever pressure. Obviously, things you need to remember to do. Tighten these 3 screws up. Notice we haven't had any fluid leaking out of there. Just tighten the 3 screws up on there. Now I like to, when I stripped all this away, all this cladding, I put a little piece of masking tape on the handlebars to say new brake pads fitted, so it always reminds me next time I go to ride the bike that I need to bed the brakes in. Now like I say, manufacturers usually say about 50 kilometres to bed the brakes in, avoid heavy braking, because what you don't want is this pad surface glazing, and that's when you get squeaking problems, etc. So you need to gently put a couple of heat cycles through them, and then from about 50 kilometres onwards you should have nice bedded in brakes. So there it is, YouTubers. Brake pads changed on one side. We're now going to do the other side. Exactly the same procedure, just take your time, and when you're pumping the pistons out to clean them in the calipers, be very, very slow, or get a friend to do the brake lever for you, and you know, you should be okay. So it's David Swordplay saying thanks for watching. I hope you find this helpful. If you do so, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking. I know there's a lot of people that watch the channel and not actually subscribed. and I really appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave a like. It helps me make more videos for you. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.